The screaming started before I could even reach the window. I was sitting at my desk on the research outpost of HFY 4, translating an old poem from a dead language when the sky outside my window turned red. Not the red of a sunset, the red of something burning, something huge. My name is Lina Voss. I am a scholar. I study words. I have never held a weapon in my life, and until that morning I did not know what real fear felt like. The alarms began a second later. 3 loud tones repeated over and over. I had never heard them before. No one in our settlement had. The Conquered of Spheres, the peaceful group of 17 species that I belonged to, had not needed such alarms for 3,000 years. We had forgotten what they were for. I ran into the hallway. My colleague, a tall, quiet man named Peter Hale, was already there. His face was white. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the lower levels. "Lina, we have to hide," he said. "Something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong." I tried to ask questions. I tried to slow down, but he would not let me. He pulled me down 3 flights of stairs, through the old archaeology wing, past the storage rooms, and into the deep dig site under the outpost. The dig site was where we studied the buried ruins. The ruins that the Conquered had told us were culturally sensitive and must never be disturbed. We disturbed them anyway, because Peter was strong and frightened, and because the sound above us had grown louder. A sound like thunder that would not stop. A sound like something very heavy landing on the world. In the lowest chamber of the dig, we stopped. Peter pressed his back against the cold stone wall. He was breathing fast. He tried to activate his communicator. It gave him only static. "Peter," I whispered, "what is happening up there?" He looked at me with wet eyes. They came through the dark rim, the long silent edge of the galaxy, a species we have never seen before. They call themselves the V-Horak Swarm. They arrived 2 hours ago, and our fleet, our peace fleet of science ships, it is gone, all of it, in minutes. I felt my legs go weak. "What do they want?" "Everything," he said. "They eat worlds. They turn living things into crystal. 12 conquered systems are already gone. We are next." I wanted to say this could not be true. I wanted to say the Conquered had spent 3,000 years building peace, and peace was strong, and peace would save us. But I heard the sound above us, the heavy landing sound, and I knew peace was not going to save anyone today. The lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere far above, people I had shared meals with this morning were screaming, and then suddenly not screaming anymore. Peter slid down the wall and put his face in his hands. I should have done the same. I should have sat down and cried, but something strange happened to me instead. I looked across the chamber and I saw it. The thing we had been told never to touch. The thing the Conquered had sealed off behind warning signs and polite lies. The monolith. It stood in the center of the chamber, taller than 3 men, made of a dark gray metal that did not rust, did not age, did not care about the dust of 10,000 years. It had markings on its surface, and one of those markings near the top was a picture I had never been allowed to study closely. A picture of a skull with wings. My feet were moving before my mind caught up. Peter called my name, but I did not stop. I walked across the chamber and I placed my hand on the cold metal. The monolith woke up. Lights blinked on along its edges, soft and blue. A panel slid open at waist height. Symbols appeared in the air above the panel, floating like dust in sunlight. The symbols shifted and twisted, and to my shock, they began to form words I could read. "Greetings," the monolith said in a voice that was both old and kind. "Beacon interface active. Please state the nature of the threat." I stared at it. I did not know what to say. "The V-Horak Swarm," I whispered. "They are here. They are destroying us. Our fleet is gone." The monolith was quiet for a moment. Then the floating words changed. "Identify yourself, please." "Lina Voss, scholar, Conquered of Spheres. I live on HFY 4. Please, whatever you are, we need help. Millions of people are dying." The monolith seemed to think. Another panel opened. A single line of text appeared, glowing softly in the dark chamber. Transmit distress beacon to sleeping fleet. Yes or no? I did not know what this meant. I did not know who the sleeping fleet was, or where they slept, or what they would do if I woke them. I was a scholar. I studied poems. I had no right to make this choice. But above me, the thunder was growing worse. The lights were flickering faster. Peter was whispering prayers to a god our species had not believed in for 1,000 years. And my people were dying. I pressed the panel, I pressed yes. The monolith hummed, a low, deep sound that I felt in my bones. The blue lights turned bright white, and somewhere in a place I could not see and could not understand, something very large and very old and very patient heard my voice. Signal transmitted, the monolith said. Estimated response time, 72 standard hours. Please survive until then, Lina Voss. The lights dimmed, the panel closed, the monolith went silent again. Peter stared at me, his mouth was open. Lina, he said, what did you just do? I did not know, I truly did not know. A rumble went through the floor above us. The outpost was being broken apart. Somewhere up there, the crystal feeders of the V-Horax swarm were doing their work. We had hours, maybe less, before they found the dig site. We need food and water, I said. My voice sounded strange to me, calmer than it should have been. And we need to stay hidden for 3 days. Peter looked at me as if I had lost my mind. 3 days, down here, with those things walking above us. Yes. Why 3 days? I swallowed, because something is coming, something that was buried here a very long time ago, and I think it is going to wake up for me. We spent the first day in silence. We rationed our food. We listened to the ceiling. Twice, heavy things walked across the floors above us. Once, we heard a voice that was not a voice, a sound like glass being broken very slowly. I covered my mouth with both hands to keep from making any noise. On the second day, Peter began to weep. He talked about his sister on the capital world. He talked about a girl he had loved in school. He said he was sorry for being afraid. I told him there was nothing to be sorry for. I held his hand. On the third day, the sky changed. I know this because the monolith lit up again without my touching it. Its blue lights came on, soft at first, then brighter. The floating words returned. Contact, it said. Approaching vessel detected in orbit. Shall I open a channel? My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Yes, I whispered. Open the channel. A voice filled the chamber. A man's voice, but not quite a man's voice. Too steady, too calm. The voice of something that had been thinking for a very long time in the dark. This is the vessel steady light, the voice said. Responding to distress beacon filed under Protocol 001, requesting confirmation of identity. I stepped closer to the monolith. My name is Lina Voss. I sent the signal. I am the one who woke you up. There was a pause, a long one. Then the voice spoke again, and there was something new in it, something I could not name, a warmth perhaps, or a sadness, or both. Hello, Lina Voss, the vessel said. It has been a very long time since anyone called us. We had begun to wonder if the children still lived. The children, I asked. You, the vessel said softly. You are the children, and we have come home. Above me, the thunder of the V-Horax swarm suddenly changed. It became something else, something new. It became fear. The steady light did not look like any ship I had ever seen. It was long and dark and shaped strangely, with pieces that did not seem to match. It was scarred along its sides, as if something had hit it many times over many years. On its front, near the top, was a symbol painted in faded white. A skull with wings. I saw all of this through the monolith's eyes, which it was somehow sharing with me. The chamber had grown warm. The air felt alive. Peter sat beside me, pale and silent, watching the pictures in the air. Lina Voss, the vessel said through the monolith. "I am going to ask you 3 questions. Please answer each one carefully. Your answers will decide what I do next." "I understand," I said. Question 1. Are the makers still alive? I did not know who the makers were. I told it so. There was a long, quiet pause. The vessel made a sound like a soft breath. "Then they truly are gone," it said. "We had hoped. For 50,000 years we had hoped. Very well. Question 2. Who is the enemy you face?" "They call themselves the Vhorak Swarm. They come from beyond the Dark Rim. They destroy worlds and turn life into crystal. They have taken 12 of our systems in 6 weeks. Question 3. How many innocent people have died? My throat closed. I could not speak for a moment. When I could, my voice was very small. I do not know, millions, perhaps more. My whole world above me is gone, steady light. Everyone I knew, everyone I worked with, except for one man who is sitting beside me now. The vessel was silent for a long time, and when it spoke again, its voice had changed. It was not warm anymore. It was not sad. It was cold, and it was ready. Thank you, Lina Voss, the steady light said. Your answers have been received. Please remain in the shelter. I am going to be busy for a while. I heard, very faintly, the sound of ancient engines beginning to move. Somewhere above me, a skull with wings opened its eyes. And in that moment I understood. I truly understood, for the first time, what my people had forgotten. We had not always been peaceful. Once, long ago, we had been something else entirely. And that something was waking up. The first thing the steady light did was very simple. It spoke to the Vhorak Swarm. I heard the message through the monolith. It was sent on every frequency, in every language the old records knew. It was short, only 1 sentence long. You have taken something that does not belong to you. Give it back. The Vhorak did not answer. They did not speak the way we spoke. They sent only images. Images of the conquered worlds they had already crystallized. Images of children being eaten by light. Images meant to break the mind of whoever saw them. The steady light looked at these images for exactly 1 second. Then it spoke again. Acknowledged, thank you for your clarity. And the sky above Ishan 4 lit up. I cannot describe what I saw next in any way that does the truth justice. I was a scholar, not a soldier. I did not have the words, but through the monolith I watched the steady light move. 1 ancient vessel alone against a Vhorak fleet of 200 crystal hive ships. It was not a fight. I am sorry. I have searched for a better word and I cannot find one. A fight is a thing that has 2 sides. What the steady light did to the Vhorak above my world was not a fight. It was a correction. The Vhorak tried everything. They sent wave after wave of their crystal ships. They used weapons that had melted whole fleets of conquered peace vessels in minutes. They screamed their broken glass scream into every channel, trying to shut down the steady light's mind. The steady light did not even seem to notice. It moved through them the way a gardener moves through weeds, slowly, patiently, without anger and without joy. It simply did the work, and when the work was done, the sky above Ishan 4 was empty. The thunder stopped. The red faded from the clouds. Somewhere above us, the heavy things that had walked across our floors went still and were carried away by the wind. Peter and I did not move for a long time. We could not. We were too small for what had just happened. Finally, the monolith lit up again. Lina Voss, said the steady light, the immediate threat to your world has been removed. Please come to the surface. I would like to meet the one who woke me up. I looked at Peter, he looked at me. Neither of us wanted to go, but both of us knew we had to. We climbed the stairs slowly. The outpost was broken. Walls were fallen. Doors hung open. The people I had known were not there, and I did not look too closely at the places where they might have been. That is a grief I had to save for later. When we reached the surface, the steady light was waiting for us. It was enormous. I had not understood from the pictures just how large it truly was. It hung above the broken roof of our outpost like a dark mountain in the sky. Its engines were so quiet I could not hear them. Its lights were soft and steady. A smaller craft came down from it, a landing pod shaped like a teardrop. It opened in front of us. Inside was no pilot, no crew, only a single glowing figure shaped like a woman made of pale blue light. She stepped out of the pod and stood on the cracked ground of my world. She wore a uniform from a time before my species had language. She had tired eyes and a small, kind smile, and a scar along her jaw that she could have hidden but had chosen not to. She was not real. She was a picture, a message from the ship. But she felt real. She felt more real than anything else in that terrible morning. "Hello, Lina Voss," she said. "My name is Captain Abigail Carter, or rather I am the image of her. She has been gone for 50,000 years, but her ship remembers her, and so I speak with her voice. I hope that is acceptable." I could not speak. I only nodded. Captain Carter looked around at the ruined outpost. Her smile grew smaller. Her tired eyes grew more tired. "I am sorry we were late," she said quietly. "Late?" I whispered. "Late for what?" "For you," she said. "For all of you. We were supposed to be here sooner. The makers built us to answer, but we slept too long and the galaxy grew up without us and you forgot we existed. I am sorry, Lina, truly. If we had known, we would have come before this happened." I did not know what to say. I did not know how to accept an apology from a ghost of a woman who had died before my species had learned to make fire. So I simply said, "Thank you for coming." Captain Carter's smile returned, just a little. "Child," she said, "there is something I must tell you, something you will not want to hear. The signal you sent was received by more than just me. There are others waking up. All across this part of the galaxy, old beacons are lighting up. Old tombs are opening. There were 37 of us, buried and sleeping. All 37 have now heard your voice." My stomach turned cold. 37 ships like yours. 37 ships, she said. Each one built for a different purpose. Each one commanded by a different captain's memory. And each one, Lina, is now asking the same question that I am about to ask you. She knelt down so that her glowing eyes were level with mine. "Who," she said softly, "is going to give us our orders?" The monolith behind me hummed. The other beacons, scattered across the galaxy, were humming too. I could feel it somehow, through the strange link the old machines had made with me. 37 ancient ships, older than civilizations, stronger than any force the modern galaxy possessed, were now awake. And they were all, every single one of them, looking for someone to tell them what to do next. The Conquered Council had not sent me. The Council had not even answered my emergency call yet. The Council did not know these ships existed. I was a scholar. I was 24 years old. I studied old poems. And the ghosts of the makers were asking me, of all people, to decide what to do with the most dangerous fleet in the history of the galaxy. "Captain Carter," I said, and my voice shook, "I do not know how to answer that question." "I know," she said gently. "That is why I am glad it is you we are asking and not someone who already has an answer ready. Think carefully, Lina. Take your time. We have waited 50,000 years. We can wait a little longer." She straightened up and looked at the sky. The clouds were clearing. The sun of Ishan 4 was beginning to shine through for the first time in days. "But think," she said, "before the swarm hits the next world, because they are still out there. They are still hungry, and they learn." I swallowed. I looked up at the steady light, hanging in the sky like a dark promise. Somewhere far away, a conquered world I had never visited was watching the V-Horak approach. Families, children, people who had no idea that an ancient fleet of wonders had just woken up on their behalf. They needed me to be brave. They needed me to make a choice. I took a deep breath. "Captain Carter," I said, "I will give you your orders, but you have to promise me one thing first." "Name it." "You have to promise me that you will stop when I say stop. Not before, not after, when I say stop." Captain Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "That," she said, "is exactly what a maker would have asked us." "Very well, Lina Voss, I promise. And through me, all 37 of us promise." I closed my eyes. "Then protect the next world," I whispered. "Go." The landing pod closed. The steady light turned in the sky. And one by one, across a galaxy that did not yet know it had been saved, 37 ancient machines began to move. The conquered council was not happy with me. I was standing in front of them 3 days later, still wearing the same dusty clothes I had worn in the dig site. My hair was a mess. My eyes had deep shadows under them from too little sleep. I had been on 3 different ships to reach the capital world of Shellan Prime, and on every ship, people had stared at me as if I were a ghost. Perhaps I was. A ghost of a scholar who had died on Ishan 4, replaced by someone else. The council chamber was huge and round, with seats for representatives of all 17 conquered species. Each seat was full. Each face was angry. Each voice wanted to speak before the others. High Speaker Mara Woolen, a tall woman with gray hair and a face like a closed door, banged her staff on the floor for silence. "Scholar Voss," she said, "you will explain yourself." I cleared my throat. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I sent a distress signal from a buried monolith on Ishan 4. The signal was answered by a fleet of ancient machines, built by a species the conquered has apparently forgotten. These machines have since destroyed Vhorak forces above 3 of our colony worlds. They have saved, I am told, at least 40 million lives in the past 72 hours. A Leshari delegate, blue-skinned and thin, hissed. "They have broken the peace accords 10,000 times over. Every engagement is a violation." "The peace accords," I said carefully, "assume that both sides want peace. The Vhorak do not." "That is not the point," High Speaker Woolen said. "The point, Scholar Voss, is that you have no authority to command a military fleet. You are not a soldier. You are not an admiral. You are a translator of old poems." "I know," I said. "I have told the fleet this. They do not seem to care." Another delegate, a short gray-furred man from the Venn Collective, leaned forward. "Why you, Scholar? Why would these machines listen to a child who has never given an order in her life?" I had thought about this question for 3 days. I did not have a good answer, but I tried. "Because I was the one who woke them up," I said. "Because the old rules, the ones their makers wrote, say that the voice which calls them is the voice they must answer. And because I think they are testing us. They want to see what kind of people we have become. They are watching what I do. If I give a bad order, I believe they will simply go back to sleep." The chamber went quiet. High Speaker Woolen studied me. Her face did not change, but something in her eyes did. "Will they," she said softly, "accept orders from this council, Scholar Voss?" I shook my head. I asked, they said no. "Why not?" "Because," I said, "they do not trust a group. They only trust a single voice. They say groups have been known to vote for terrible things. A single voice, they said, can be held accountable. A council cannot." There was an uncomfortable silence. Several delegates looked down at their hands. "So," High Speaker Woolen said at last, "either we work with you or we do nothing. Is that your message?" "It is not my message," I said. "It is the situation. I did not choose it. I do not want it, but I cannot change it." She was quiet for a long time. Then she did something I did not expect. She stood up. She walked down from her high seat. She came and stood in front of me. And she said, "Then you will have our help, Scholar Voss, and our eyes. You will have an advisory board drawn from this council. You will have specialists in law, in history, in the moral codes of the 17 species. You will not be alone. You will carry this weight with us behind you." I felt tears rising. I pushed them down. Thank you, High Speaker. Do not thank me yet, she said, and her face was gentle and terrible at the same time. You have not yet made a mistake. When you do, we will all feel it. I nodded, I understood. That afternoon, I boarded the Steady Light as its official liaison. Captain Carter was waiting for me in the landing bay, smiling her small, tired smile. Welcome aboard, Lena, she said. There are some people I would like you to meet. She led me through long, quiet halls. The Steady Light was a strange place. It was huge, but there were no crew members anywhere. Only lights and soft humming and ghosts. In the main command center, other glowing figures were waiting. Each one stood on a platform of its own. Each one represented a ship. Lena Voss, Captain Carter said, meet the others. A tall, dark-haired man in a heavy coat stepped forward. I am Captain Henry Bell. My ship is the Iron Morning. I am, in the language of my time, a blockade vessel. I stop things from reaching places they should not go. A young woman with bright eyes and a quick smile bounced on her toes. Hi, I am Lieutenant Polly Green. Everyone calls me Polly. My ship is the Little Lantern. I am a scout and a courier. I am fast. I am so fast. You will like me. I could not help smiling back. I think I will. An older woman with a quiet voice nodded to me. Captain Rose Ashford. My ship is the Quiet Hand. I specialize in rescue and recovery. Where the swarm has taken people, I go to see if any can still be found. A heavy voice spoke from the back. A large man with a scarred face and a careful, calm expression. Major George Nolan, the Deep Keel. I am a close escort. I stand between the enemy and the innocent. I do not move. There were more, 10 of them in total, gathered in this room. 27 others were scattered across the galaxy on urgent missions. All of them greeted me. All of them looked at me with the same strange, patient respect. I sat down on the small chair Captain Carter had prepared for me. All right, I said, please teach me. I need to understand who you are and what you can do and what you must never do. I need to understand your rules. Captain Carter nodded. Our makers wrote 5 rules for us. We call them the old doctrines. Would you like to hear them? Yes. She folded her hands behind her back. 1. Never fight the war the enemy wants. Always fight the war they fear. 2. The only acceptable number of innocent losses is 0. Everything else is negotiable. 3. Hope is a weapon. Fear is a weapon. Use both with care and never on your own people. 4. If you must be hard on those who chose to be cruel. Never on those who did not choose at all. And 5. The one the makers wrote last after they had lost too many friends. She paused. Her voice grew softer. Come home, always come home. I sat in silence. The rules sank into me like rain into dry soil. I thought of my colleagues. I thought of Peter. I thought of the V-Horek coming from the Dark Rim. Captain Carter, I said, what happened to the makers? Why did they never come home? She looked at me for a long moment. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly. That, she said, is a story for another day, Lena. For now, we have work to do. The swarm is preparing an attack on the mining colony at Vashun 3. 4 million civilians, no defenses. They will arrive in 11 hours. Shall we go? I took a deep breath. I thought of the 5 rules. I thought of the council behind me. I thought of the promise I had made. Yes, I said, go and Captain Carter. Yes. Bring everyone home. She smiled, the smallest, warmest smile I had seen from her. That, she said, is what makers used to say. The steady light turned in the black between worlds. 10 other ancient vessels turned with it. Somewhere, 27 more were already moving. And in a quiet corner of my heart, I made myself a promise too. A promise that I would not let the makers' rules die with me. Whatever happened next, I would carry them, even if my hands shook, even if my voice was small. I was not a soldier. I was a scholar of old poems. But old poems, I was starting to understand, had been written by people who lived through nights like this one. And they had left us the words we needed. The battle at Vashun 3 went the way the old doctrine said it should. The swarm arrived expecting easy prey. 4 million miners and their families, living in domed cities on a dusty gray world, with only old emergency ships for protection. The swarm's hive ships came in a wide crescent, the way they always did. They opened their broadcast of terror, the images meant to break minds. They began their slow, hungry approach. They did not know that the Iron Morning was already in position behind them. Captain Bell did what blockade vessels do. He closed the door. Before the swarm realized what was happening, the path back to the Dark Rim was shut. Every escape route the V-Horek had used for a year was suddenly gone. Their crescent formation, so confident, so practiced, found itself looking at the deep keel and the steady light coming in from the front, and the little lantern dancing around their edges, cutting their communication beams one by one. The swarm tried to scream their terror images at us. Captain Carter simply switched the channel off. "We do not look at those," she told me quietly. "Our makers learned early that you should never let the enemy show you what they want you to fear. You choose your own fears. You do not borrow theirs." I watched the battle from the command center, sitting in my small chair, saying almost nothing. Every few minutes, Captain Carter would ask me a short question, always the same kind. "This hive ship is trying to hide behind a civilian asteroid colony. We can destroy the hive ship with minimal harm to the colony. May we proceed?" "Yes." "A group of swarm units is retreating toward Vashun 3's moon, where they might regroup. If we let them go, they will return in a month. If we stop them now, the moon's surface will suffer damage. It has no life on it. May we proceed?" "Yes." "A swarm commander ship is surrendering. It is a trick. Their weapons are still charging. What should we do?" I hesitated on that one. I thought of Rule 4. Be hard on those who chose to be cruel. "Disable their weapons," I said. "Then accept the surrender. Then question their commander to learn what they know." Captain Carter nodded slowly. "That is a maker's answer." "Is it the right one?" "It is a right one," she said. "There are often several. You chose well, Lina." 41 minutes after the battle began, it ended. The swarm's attack on Vashun 3 was broken. Their fleet was reduced to drifting pieces. The miners and their families, 4 million of them, were safe. Not one had been harmed. Not one. I sat in my chair and I shook. I had not realized I was shaking until Polly, the young fast scout, laid her small glowing hand on my shoulder. "First one is hard," she said gently. "The good news is the second one is hard too, and the third. If they ever stop being hard, Lina, you tell us. That is when we worry." I nodded. I could not speak. The Conquered Council, watching through the feeds I had insisted on sharing with them, sent a brief message. "Well done, Scholar Voss, continue." It was not warm, but it was not angry either. In politics, I was learning that counted as praise. Weeks passed, then months. The fleet moved across the spiral arm system by system. The swarm's lines were pushed back. Worlds that had been surrounded were freed. Refugees began to go home. For the first time in a year, conquered news channels carried something other than reports of loss. I moved with the fleet. I slept in a small cabin aboard the Steady Light. I ate simple food grown in its quiet gardens. I talked every day with the ghost captains. Slowly, I began to understand them. They were not monsters. This surprised me. The Conquered's buried histories had suggested their makers had been violent, cruel, a species best forgotten. But the ghosts I spoke with were not cruel. They were tired. They were careful. They were often sad. Captain Ashford of the Quiet Hand once told me, as we watched her ship search through a crystallized world for any living survivors, "We did not enjoy the work, Lina. None of us did. We did it because someone had to, and because the alternative was worse, and because we hoped that one day someone would be able to do without us." "Someone like me?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "Someone like all of you. The Maker's great dream was that their descendants would never need ships like ours. That dream did not fail because you did something wrong. It failed because the galaxy is bigger and stranger than any dream can cover. We are here to fill the gap between dreams and reality. That is all. I wrote her words down in my notebook that night. I had started keeping a notebook. I wrote down everything the ghosts told me. I did not know why. I only knew that someone should. But as the weeks became months, I began to notice things that worried me. The ghost captains did not take prisoners except for questioning. When I asked why, Captain Carter explained that the swarm had no individuals in the way I understood them. There was no mind to reason with, no person to save, only the hive. I accepted this. I think it was true. But I also noticed that when a swarm world was cleared, the ships sometimes did something called ending the soil. They treated the ground with a process that meant no swarm crystal could grow there again for 1,000 years. It also meant that the world was nearly lifeless afterwards. I asked Captain Carter about this. "Is it necessary?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time. "It is effective," she said finally. "It is not always necessary. It was written into our standing orders by a Maker admiral who had lost a great deal. We have continued it because no one has told us to stop." I sat with that for a day, then I went back to her. "Stop," I said. "If a world can be cleaned without ending the soil, clean it that way. Only end the soil if there is no other choice. And when you must do it, tell me first." Captain Carter inclined her head. "Yes, liaison Voss. That order is accepted by all 37 ships." That night I wrote in my notebook, "They were waiting for someone to tell them to stop. They have been waiting for 50,000 years." I cried a little, reading that back. Then I kept writing. The hardest moment came in the 6th month. We had chased the swarm's core intelligence, the prime mind as Captain Carter called it, to a moon-sized crystal structure deep inside the dark rim. It was the source of the swarm. If it fell, the scattered pieces of the Vhorak would lose their coordination and within a few generations simply fade. The fleet surrounded the structure. The Concord's advisory board, watching from many light years away, argued for 3 hours about whether we had the right to do this. In the end, they said yes, carefully. We had the right, they decided, because the prime mind had made clear that it would never, ever stop. But before Captain Carter gave the order, she turned to me. "Lina," she said, "our old doctrines require that we offer quarter one time to any enemy at the commander's choice. I want to offer it now. Do you agree?" I nodded. We opened a channel to the prime mind. I spoke to it myself, with the advisory board listening. "Prime mind of the Vhorak," I said, "this is Lina Voss, liaison of the fleet. I am empowered to offer you terms. If you withdraw beyond the dark rim and stop consuming inhabited worlds, we will let you live. You will have space. You will have worlds that hold no life. You will have time. You must only stop hurting others." The prime mind answered in pictures as it always did. It sent me an image of a galaxy made entirely of crystal, silent, beautiful, empty. "This is peace," its wordless message said. "This is rest. This is the only end." I felt cold reading it. I opened my own channel to Captain Carter. "Captain," I said quietly, "the offer has been refused." "Understood, liaison. Shall we proceed?" I closed my eyes. I thought of Ishan 4. I thought of Vashun 3. I thought of 40 million people and the ones who had not been saved in time, whose names I would never know. I thought of Peter, who had survived and who now taught small children on a new colony world and sent me letters that always ended with the same line. "Thank you for choosing well." "Proceed," I said. The fleet did its work. The prime mind fell. The dark rim grew quiet. The war was over. And then Captain Carter came to me, in my small cabin, with the question I had been dreading since the beginning. "Liaison Voss," she said gently, "the swarm is ended. What are your final orders for the fleet?" I sat on the edge of my bunk. I looked at my notebook, full of 6 months of rules and thoughts and small, quiet prayers. 37 ships, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, waiting for my word. The Conquered Council would want them kept. Some delegates had already begun to whisper about other problems, other species who might need managing. The fleet was so useful, they said, so efficient, so obedient. I could become Inheritor Admiral. I was 24 years old. I could rule the galaxy by noon tomorrow if I wanted. The ghost captains would follow me. That frightened me more than any swarm ever had. I looked up at Captain Carter. Her tired eyes looked back. "I need the night," I said. "I will give you my orders in the morning." "Of course," she said, and she left me alone. I did not sleep, I walked. The steady light was quiet in the deep hours. I walked through its halls. I ran my hand along its old scarred walls. I passed the empty quarters where crew had once lived, where photographs still sat on small shelves, showing people whose great-great-grandchildren had also lived and died long before I was born. I came to the observation deck. I stood at the great window, outside. The galaxy turned slowly, pale and enormous. Somewhere out there were the worlds that had survived because of these ships. Somewhere out there were the makers, quiet, forgotten graves. A soft footstep behind me. Captain Carter, not her usual projection, something different tonight. She was shaped slightly older, a little sadder, a little more real. "May I join you?" she asked. "Please." She stood beside me at the window. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "I am going to tell you what happened to the makers. You have earned it." I listened. "They fought a long war," she said, "against something worse than the swarm, a thing that ate minds, a thing they called the Great Silence. They fought it for 400 years. They won. But the winning cost them almost everything. They had, by the end, become so good at the work of war that they frightened themselves. So they did a brave thing and a foolish thing and a wise thing all at once. They broke their fleet into pieces and buried it across the galaxy. They told the ships, 'Sleep until your children call you, and if they never call you, sleep forever.' They put away their uniforms. They scattered into many small, peaceful colonies. They became, in a few thousand years, many different peoples. Some of those peoples, over tens of thousands of years, became your conquered." I stared at her. "We are the makers." "You are their many great-great-grandchildren," she said softly. "You are what they hoped you would become. They did not want you to remember them. They wanted you to be better. You have been better, Lena, all 17 of you. You built a peace they could not build themselves. That is an achievement greater than any of our battles." I felt tears on my face. I did not wipe them away. "Then what," I whispered, "should I do with you?" Captain Carter looked at me for a long moment, and then, very gently, she said, "Whatever you think your ancestors would have wanted, Lena, they trusted you. Trust yourself." She placed a hand of soft blue light that I could not really feel, on my shoulder. "The old doctrines have a 6th rule," she said. "One the makers wrote last and whispered to us only when we were alone. A rule they did not put in the official books because it was too hard to say out loud." "What is the 6th rule?" Her tired, kind eyes met mine. "The best weapon," she said softly, "is the one you never have to wake up." I stood at the window for a very long time after she left. And at last, as the first light of a distant star began to touch the glass, I knew what to do. In the morning, I called the fleet together. All 37 ghost captains appeared in the Steady Lights Command Center. Captain Carter, Captain Bell, Lieutenant Polly Green, Captain Ashford, Major Nolan, and all the others whose names I had come to love. Captain Mercy Langford of the Patient Wind, Captain Oliver Brooke of the Low Tide, Lieutenant Felix Holt of the Sparrow, Commander Edith Walsh of the Blue Compass, and more and more. They stood on their platforms, they looked at me calmly, they waited. Behind me, the full Conquered Council was watching on live channel. High Speaker Woolen, all 17 species. The advisory board, Peter too, from his small school on his new world. I had asked him to witness this. He had agreed. I took a deep breath. Ghost captains of the Maker Fleet, I said. My voice was not quite steady, but it was not small either. You came when I called. You fought a war I could not fight. You saved my people and many other peoples. You followed my orders, though I had no right to give them. You have been the honor of your makers and the honor of their children. I paused. I am not going to keep you. A small sound went through the command center. I do not know if it was surprise or relief or both. Behind me, on the council feed, I heard a few delegates begin to speak and then fall silent. I kept going. Some in my council will want me to keep you. They will say you are too useful to send away. They will point to problems across the galaxy. They will say, just for a little while, just for a few years, just until things are settled. I know this voice. I have heard it in my own head. It is a voice that sounds reasonable and is, in fact, very dangerous. I looked at Captain Carter. She was smiling. The old doctrines have a sixth rule, I said. The best weapon is the one you never have to wake up. I believe this rule. I will honor it. So this is my order. I stood straighter. Return to your tombs, all 37 of you. Sleep again, but before you sleep, change your own protocols. Write a new rule into your beacons. From this day forward, you will not answer the voice of any single person, not even mine. You will answer only the voice of a council chosen by chance from every species in the galaxy. A council of ordinary people, not admirals, not emperors, not scholars, ordinary people. And that council, when it calls, must agree by a wide margin, not a narrow one before you wake. I took a breath. I am doing this for 3 reasons. 1. I do not trust myself with you. No one person should be trusted with you. 2. I do not trust my council with you either. A small group of leaders can make terrible mistakes in quiet rooms. 3. If you are ever to be woken again, it should be because many voices from many worlds have all agreed that the danger is real and the cause is just. Only then will the use of you be worth your terrible weight. I looked at each ghost captain in turn. Is this order accepted? They looked at each other. Captain Bell nodded first, then Captain Ashford, then Major Nolan, then Polly with a small sad smile, then the others, one by one, all 37. Captain Carter spoke for them. Liaison Voss, your order is accepted by unanimous agreement. We will write the new protocol. We will return to our resting places. We will sleep. Her voice softened. Thank you, Lina. You have given us what the makers could not give themselves, a quiet ending. I could not speak for a moment. When I could, my voice was very small. You came when I called. Yes. And you will come again if I call a second time. Captain Carter shook her head, gently, firmly. No, Lina, not you alone. Never you alone. That is the new rule, is it not? We will come if many of you call together in great need, but not for one voice, not ever again. I nodded, tears ran down my cheeks. I did not try to hide them. Good, I said, that is correct. One by one, the ghost captains began to flicker out. Captain Ashford bowed to me. Go gently, child. Major Nolan saluted. It was a privileged liaison. Captain Bell touched his hat in an old maker gesture. Fair weather. Polly, my bright, fast young scout, ran forward and hugged me. Her light passed through me, but I felt it anyway. She whispered in my ear, the makers would be so proud of you, cousin. I am so proud of you. Then she was gone. Only Captain Carter remained. She looked at me for a long time. Then she smiled, the smallest, warmest smile in the galaxy. Captain's log, final entry, she said softly. Mission accomplished. The children grew up well, going home. She turned as if to walk away. Then she paused. Lina, she said, without looking back. Yes. Write it down, all of it. Do not let us become a secret again. Secrets are how civilizations forget. Write us down and teach your children and their children and their children, not as monsters, not as gods, just as people. People who did their best and for once got to rest. I will, I whispered. I promise. She nodded. And then she was gone too. The steady light hummed softly around me. Its autopilot, now directed by the new protocol, turned its great scarred hull toward the empty place where it had slept for so long. All 37 ships did the same. Over the next 3 weeks across the galaxy, ancient beacons dimmed one by one. Tombs closed. The ghost fleet of the Makers returned to silence. But the monoliths remained, and now on each one a new mark had appeared beside the old skull with wings. A second symbol, 18 small circles, linked in a wide ring, each one representing a species of the conquered. The new rule written into the stone. If ever again a great darkness came, the children of the Makers would decide together whether to wake their ancestors. Or whether, this time, the children would be strong enough to stand on their own. I went home after that. Not to HFY 4. HFY 4 was gone, and I could not live in the ruins of where I had been a scholar. I went to a small colony world called Rin, where the grass was green and the sea was warm and no battles had ever been fought. I bought a small house with a wide porch. I planted a garden. I wrote my book. It took me 4 years. I wrote down everything. The monolith, the signal. Captain Carter's tired eyes, Polly's bright smile, the 5 rules of the old doctrines, the 6th rule whispered in the dark, the names of every ghost captain I had met, and the names of their ships, and the names of their long-dead makers where I had been able to find them. I wrote down the fall of HFY 4. I wrote down the survival of Vashun 3. I wrote down the Prime Mind's silent, terrible vision of a crystal galaxy and my refusal of it. I wrote down my own mistakes, my hesitations, the orders I had almost given and then changed, the nights I had cried in my small cabin. I did not pretend to be brave in the book. Bravery that pretends is the easiest kind to copy and the most dangerous. The book is called, simply, They Came When We Called. It is now taught in schools on every conquered world. Some parents do not like this. They say the book is too frightening for children. They say it will teach them to worry about the dark. But other parents, the kind of parents I hope I will someday be, tell me the book has been a comfort to their children, because it ends with the 6th rule, because it ends with the ships going home, because it tells the young people of our galaxy that their ancestors were not monsters and not gods but people, tired people, people who made hard choices and then made the harder choice of laying their weapons down. The book ends this way, and I am allowed to repeat it here because I wrote it myself. We are not our ancestors. We do not need to be. They built the doors so that we could choose whether to open them. The greatest gift they gave us was not the fleet in the tombs. It was the silence around it. It was the empty space where a war used to be. Fill that space with gardens. Fill it with schools. Fill it with the sound of children arguing kindly about small things. That is how you honor the Makers, not by waking them, by making their sleep worthwhile. It is 20 years now since the swarm fell. I am older. My hair is beginning to show gray. I have a daughter named Ren, who is 7 years old and full of very loud questions. I have a husband, a quiet, kind man who was a carpenter before he met me and is still a carpenter now. I think this is exactly right. My husband built the shelf that sits above my writing desk. On the shelf is a small piece of dark gray metal, no larger than my hand. It is a fragment that Captain Carter gave me as a farewell gift. A piece of the steady light's hull, she said, so that I would never think I had only dreamed her. The fragment is quiet. It does not glow. It does not speak. Most days I do not even look at it. But sometimes, on evenings when the sea wind is soft, I sit at my desk and I place my hand on the metal and I remember. Ren found the fragment last year. She asked me what it was. I told her the truth. I told her about the old tombs, about the skull with wings, about the tired captains, about the Vhorak swarm and the worlds that had fallen and the worlds that had been saved. She listened with wide eyes. When I was finished, she asked me one question. "Mother," she said, "if something bad came again, would you wake them up?" I thought for a long time before I answered. "No, sweet one," I said at last. "That is not my choice anymore. It is not any one person's choice. That is the whole point." "Then whose choice is it?" "It is our choice," I said. "All of us. Every world, every voice together, only if we all agree." She frowned. "That sounds slow." I laughed. "Yes, Ren, it is slow. Slow is good. Slow means we will only do it if we truly must." She thought about this. She is a thoughtful child. "Mother," she said, "I hope we never have to." I pulled her close. I kissed the top of her head. I smelled the sun in her hair. "Me too, little one," I whispered. "Me too." Outside, the sea wind moved through the tall grass. Somewhere high above us, in an orbit so far and so quiet that no one could hear it, a small satellite of the Conquered watched over our world. Inside the satellite was a message written in 17 languages. The message would be broadcast only if the Great Council of Species, one day, voted to send it. The message was very short. It was the only thing the ghost captains had asked for when they left. It said simply, "Hello, old friends, we are calling." If that message is ever sent, the tombs will open, the beacons will light, the scarred old ships will turn in the dark and come. But until then, they sleep, and I will do everything in my small life to make sure they keep sleeping. The best weapon, the Makers told me, is the one you never have to wake up. I believe them. I believed them then. I believe them now. I will believe them tomorrow and the day after and every day until my daughter has a daughter of her own, and that daughter learns the 6th rule and carries it forward. My name is Lina Voss. I was a scholar. Once, a long time ago, I pressed a button in a dark chamber under a dying world, and the ghosts of my ancestors answered. They did terrible and wonderful things on my behalf, and then, because I asked them to, they went home. I am grateful every day that they trusted me. I am grateful every day that I got to trust them back. And that, I think, is the end of the story. Not the end of the Conquered, not the end of the galaxy, just the end of this one small chapter which I was lucky enough to see and brave enough sometimes to record. Good night, Captain Carter. Good night, Polly. Good night, all of you. Sleep well. We will try not to need you. End of transmission.